Well, we live in interesting times, and the good news is Trump blinked, or at least some adult in the room did. And what happens? The market bounces. So he paused tariffs for 90 days, which I'm sure you're all really aware of. And so rather than being down 20% or more, 25% even, the S&P 500 is down around 10% or 11%. And the same goes for the local benchmark index, the S&P ASX 200. So perspective is the key, right? So look at CVA, one of the biggest stocks in the local market. That's still above $154. And it only breached $150 late last year. So essentially, stocks across the board, we've lost something like 3 months of gains. There's more momentum driven than ever. And I guess Trump and his team were scared by that momentum when US Treasuries sold off with due to margin calls, so having to pay margins on the leverage driven equity positions caused them to have a rethink. And with the exception of China, basically they hit the pause button. But I can tell you, like 90 days, what 90 days means is that there's not going to be any major capital decisions in the next 3 months. So everyone is still up in the air. So about what the new state of play is. But one of the big X factors is what China does. So what position they take out of this, because their tariffs were notably still on at 125% or in that realm. I mean, unbelievable. It was actually increased. And they're one of the biggest, if not the biggest owners of US Treasuries. So they're a huge player. The other big question is what the Fed does, what Jerome Powell does, because unlike other times where we've experienced like huge disruption in the market, COVID, or before that, the financial crisis, it was pretty obvious that the Fed was going to turn the spigots on and inject the market with liquidity. This time it's not obvious because you've got the inflationary effect of tariffs. So it's very confusing. The two effects on the markets, being tariffs and valuation, are still up in the air. But whatever the outcome, we know that a global recession is more likely than it was 2 weeks ago, which is to a degree still being factored in. And what we're here to say, all of us are saying, don't panic and look at the stocks that you own, because stock picking really is the key. Holding index funds is good, and that gives you instant diversification at the lowest cost, but you don't want to be a hostage to the market. And that's what we do. We stock pick and we look to buy stocks cheap, and that is our protection. So that's been our consistent message all along.